Hey, hey, happy new year. Ding dong, all that good stuff. Welcome to it's a brand new year. It's Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. We're back for the 2022 edition, and it's, same smiley faces, different year, a whole bunch of new shows coming up for you. And we're looking forward to tonight's show, which we're going to be talking about the 50th anniversary of Wildlife. Just happened last month, December 7th to be exact. And we thought, hey, let's talk about Wildlife and has it aged well? And we'll just talk about it in general. But before we do that, I'll introduce myself and my co-hosts. I'm Tom Hunyadi. You may know me from my other show, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, which is a weekly show that myself and my co-host Annie Nichols do on audio and on YouTube, and you can check it out there. So I'm going to introduce to you my co-hosts, my friends, the people that I love doing this show with every 2 weeks. And we're going to start off with, as always, with the Queen. You know her, you love her. She's always on somebody's show, and we're lucky to have her here because it seems like she's always doing something, almost as busy as our good friend Ken Womack. And you know her from her shows, her shows, her books, Michael Jackson FAQ, everything that's left to know about the King of Pop, and she's a co-editor on Beatles and the Fandom, and also the songs we were singing, the guided tour through the Beatles lesser known tracks. Kid O'Toole, what's going on?
Well, just hanging in there and hoping that 2022 is going to be a much better year, and Happy New Year. Yeah, I know, Joe. We'll get to you in a minute.
Right.
Fingers crossed.
But hi, Tom. Hi, Joe. Hi, Ken. And hello, everybody out there. Happy New Year.
Yes. And speaking of Joe, he's been having this great YouTube channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, for the last 10 years, where he does reviews, rants, finds, record store videos, you name it, he does it. Joe Mayo, aka Mean Mr. Mayo. Joe, my friend, it's the year 2022. I'm sure you're going to get in line for yourself. Get you a nice little people person burger there, right? And just side of ketchup, right?
It's going to be a people person salad,
right?
A little Soylent Green.
A little Soylent Green. Very good. But if you're out there, you're watching, you're talking, you're like, what's up with this Soylent Green that Joe has been talking about? Well, it takes place in the year 2022, and it's probably, you would say, one of your favorite movies, right, Joe? Or it's up there.
Yeah, I saw it as a kid in the theater on a double bill with Westworld. It was about the future of what happens to Manhattan and the rest of the world, really, 50 years hence. And it's not too good.
It's not too good.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody.
So,
thanks for cheering us up.
What's going to happen when we get to 2022? I'm like, I had to get the shirt. So
yes,
that's it.
And last but certainly not least, is you know him from almost the last 40 years for his syndicated Beatles show, Every Little Thing, where he plays every little thing. And you can hear it now on 50 radio stations now?
Around 50.
Yeah, around 50. And he also has the wonderful podcast, Things We Said Today, with Alan Kozin and Darren DeVivo, and his own brand new YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio. And he's got a great website called Ken Michaels Radio as well, where you can go on there and you can do weekly trivia questions where he gives away prizes. And I should know because I've been fortunate to win a few prizes in my time, but since retired. But anyways, Ken Michaels, how are you doing, my friend? Well, Happy New Year and welcome back.
Happy New Year to you. Yeah. Happy New Year to all of our followers. And 2021 in terms of releases was an amazing year.
Right.
Really, it's going to be hard to top that. And an expensive year. I have a feeling that's going to continue. As you will find out with the news, we haven't had a moment to breathe here.
Right. Well, it has been just about a month since we've been here. So obviously, like Ken said, there will be a lot of news. So why don't we get with Ken and he can take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Well, first of all, as I'm sure everyone knows by now, the Beatles performance from the Apple rooftop, which was the finale of the Get Back documentary, will be shown at IMAX theaters across the country on the 53rd anniversary of the concert itself, January 30th. I've been told that tickets went on sale, and it is reserved seating for this IMAX event. After that, the Apple rooftop performance will be shown in select movie theaters for 3 days, February 11th, 12th, and 13th. And there is now a release date for Get Back on DVD and Blu-ray, and that's on February the 8th. Unfortunately, there is no mention of bonus material. But as we've said, we have almost 8 hours here, which I think we all feel very blessed about. So I think that we should all be grateful for that. Who knows if in the future there might be a deluxe version of Get Back. But how do you guys feel about this? I'm kind of surprised that the DVD Blu-ray is coming out so soon.
Oh, I'm relieved. I'm glad it is because, as I often say, I'm worried that a lot of people are going to make, unofficial copies. I think they are already.
They're already out. They're already out. I know.
Right?
I know a couple people that have those bootlegs.
Yeah, and I thought maybe that would give the urge to Disney, Apple, whoever, to really get moving on it and try to at least put a really good official copy out to maybe squash some of that. Although a lot of people are telling me, right, that the one that was on Disney Plus was 4K, whereas this one is just Blu-ray, which might be even a step down. I don't know. It's going to look pretty darn good, I'm sure, no matter what.
Yeah.
It'll still look good, but we were talking about before we came on, like we still don't know how long this is going to be on Disney Plus, and plus, listening to your Peter Jackson interview on things we said today, I mean, he kind of predicted this, right? Where I mean, if this is a bare bones release, if it does do well, then that will lead to maybe a deluxe version later on this year. Which fine, I'll buy this, but it's still not cool. I don't think it's cool to ask your hardcore fans to buy this and then buy it again a couple months later down the line. It's asking a lot. I mean, yeah, we're going to do it hands down. Here, take my money. But still, I mean, it's
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I remember a person named James.
Right. The Beatles know nothing about this. Right. They've never been involved with that kind of ploy to get people to buy several copies of the same thing. They've never done that before. So, but we'll have to wait and see. And I hope at some point, it's wishful thinking on my part, I'd love to see a soundtrack with some of the audio, from those sessions. And Lord knows there's a lot of material. How much fans think is worthwhile to release, everyone's got their own opinion, but there should be some kind of audio release. And then there's also the Let It Be DVD, Blu-ray, the original film, which I would guess to be later in the year.
Right. I hope so, because I really hope so. I think that does need to come out. I mean, this was wonderful. I mean, no question about it. But it shouldn't replace, the original Let It Be. But I did want to mention, I'm very surprised that this is coming out so soon. The DVD Blu-ray version. I did not expect it to be out until maybe summer or so. I mean, I'm very surprised, but I hope there will be some kind of a deluxe version in the future, because I'm disappointed that there aren't going to be extras on this one. I think because certainly Peter Jackson in the interview that you did with him on Things We Said Today, Ken, that he hinted for sure that there was more. I would love bonus material. So who knows? Maybe by say next Christmas, there's going to be
maybe right.
That would be some treat if we had any extra material, an hour, 2 hours. Whoever, the more the merrier.
16.
Yeah.
60.
Right, 60. Yeah.
We're not greedy.
Well,
but we shall see. Yeah. More exciting news. is that there's already a website devoted to the upcoming archival release for John and Yoko and Elephant's Memories 1972 album sometime in New York City. No information has been offered yet other than it's being billed as the Ultimate Mixes for 2022. This year marks the album's 50th anniversary. So the question is, will it be coming out soon since this website has just been made for the release, or will they try to stick closer to the anniversary in June, which is when it came out in the US anyway? Okay. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Ringo Starr is releasing a new book coming out around Valentine's Day in February, sold exclusively through Julian's Auctions, to be titled Lifted, described by Ringo as fab images and memories in my life with the Beatles from across the universe. This is a hardcover coffee table size book, which offers in words and pictures Ringo's singular and revealing perspective on his time in the greatest band in music history. Ringo says with a laugh, I am not writing this book as a Beatles historian. I am writing this book as a Beatle. And there's only a couple of us who can do that. Starr explained, I didn't keep all these photos. These fantastic images came back to me in recent years from here, there, and everywhere, online and off, and have somehow helped me get back into seeing my life with the Fab Four through fresh eyes. A lot of the photos in this book I spotted on my phone and on my computer and lifted them because they brought back so many fabulous memories. In recent years, I'd gather these Beatle photos that I sometimes barely remembered. After a while, I thought how great it would be to lift these fantastic photos and some of my other favorites for charity and tell my true tales that they inspire about what the four of us, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, went through back in the day. And the best thing is that it's all for a good cause because the money is going to our Lotus Foundation. So proceeds from this book, and there's also going to be a limited edition 500 copies edition signed by Ringo, will benefit this charity of his, the Lotus Foundation, and the limited edition sells for $495. Did you order it yet, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm Christmas shopping, right? You know, and then all of a sudden I get this message that the new Ringo book's coming out, and I'm like, come on, give us a break here.
Hey, it's half the cost of the George Harrison Uber.
That's true. That is true.
I pre-ordered the regular edition.
Oh, very good.
So did we. Yeah. Okay. But to order this book, just go to juliansauctions.com.
Yeah, Alan Kozin made an interesting point about that on the last things we said today about what the photos and, you know, who took them and, you know, are they going to get any, you know, residuals or anything like that for those photos? Or
right. There could be clearance issues, but I hope not. I think a lot of people won't challenge Ringo because number one, he's Ringo.
Yeah.
And,
and it's for charity too.
Yeah. So why would you complain and want money for that then?
And it's so nice that he, you know, of course, he's been doing it for years, embracing the Beatles. You know, we say about how enough time goes by, and for many years now, Ringo's been, as has Paul, been, you know, really embracing the Beatles past and all that. I couldn't imagine him doing this around the time of Caveman, when he's trying to promote Caveman. It's like everybody wants to talk about the Beatles, but hey, it's a wonderful thing.
Sure,
absolutely.
Okay. And I'm sure we'll be reviewing it as soon as it comes out.
Absolutely.
Also due out in February is a tribute album to Yoko Ono called Ocean Child, Songs of Yoko Ono, featuring various artists covering Yoko's material. The album's being curated by Death Cab for Cutie's Benjamin Gibbard and will feature the band Death Cab for Cutie, along with David Byrne and Yola Tango covering Who Has Seen the Wind. Other artists include Deerhoof, The Flaming Lips, Sharon Van Etten, and others. The album is actually due out on Yoko's 89th birthday.
Wow.
She's going to turn 89, and that's February the 18th. What a busy month for Beatle fans in February. With special thanks to John Bazzini, who heads the Beatles in Print Together and Solo Facebook page. We learn of a new book coming out on George Harrison May 24th. It's called Came the Lightning, Came the Light, 20 Poems for George by Olivia Harrison. A quote from Olivia appears in its description in Amazon. She says, "Time, we take no notice of it. but for its loss. I wanted to stop time on the day George died so that I wouldn't ever have to look back. Yet here I am, 20 years and 20 poems later, one for each year, I suppose. I didn't plan it that way, but here they are, thoughts, feelings, and words about life and death, but mostly love and our journey to the end. Interesting idea, one poem for each year.
Cool.
Again, coming out May the 24th. Philip Norman is best known to Beatle fans for writing the Beatles biography Shout, and more recently a bio for Paul McCartney. It does not rest there. John Bazzini also tells us that he has, you got to come on this show already. Tell us everything going on.
Yeah, he needs to do that.
So Philip has a book coming out on George Harrison titled Dark Horse in Search of George Harrison, which won't be out until 2023. The Grammy Awards are being postponed due to COVID, and Paul, as you know, is nominated for 2 awards for Best Rock Song with Find My Way and Best Rock Album for McCartney 3. Thanks to another great source of news for me, and that's our own Tom Hunyadi. Edgar Winter, it's not just Darren DeVivo and John Bazzini, it's also you. Edgar Winter has been busy for several years planning a tribute album to his late brother, guitarist Johnny Winter. A new album is due out in April to be called Brother Johnny, and it will include 17 tracks handpicked by Edgar and producer Roger Hogarth, including 2 new songs from Edgar. And this tribute will have a star-studded cast of musicians helping out, including Ringo, along with Michael McDonald, Joe Walsh, Steve Lukather, Joe Bonamassa, Keb Mo, and others.
Quite a
Ringo's
lineup.
always there. Yeah.
Wow.
Ringo always gets involved in a lot of these compilations, always, drumming on one track for each one. Also, a new tour is being announced that is similar to what we experienced back in 2019 with a tribute to the Beatles' White Album with a superstar cast. And this will be a tribute to the Beatles albums Rubber Soul and Revolver, with a band consisting of some of the same names. Todd Rundgren, Denny Lane is in this. Joey Mollen returns. Christopher Cross is there again. Jason Scheff from Chicago and Jay DeMarcus from Rascal Flatts. The concert will be a mixture of all these players playing some of their own hits, along with the songs from both Beatles albums. Okay, I do know that there is one show in Connecticut at the Ridgefield Playhouse, March 3rd, so expect that tour to start around that time. This really does remind me in a way, I don't know if I ever brought this up, back in the year around 2000, there was a tour of Walk Down Abbey Road.
Yes.
And you had a star-studded cast just like this. And it was divided between all the artists doing their own songs and then doing Beatles songs. So it's really just the continuation. And you have some of the same people that were there from that time. Todd Rundgren was involved. Christopher Cross, I know, was.
Was that one of the Hart sisters where it was in there?
Ann Wilson.
Ann Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, she was involved. Yeah. I think Joey Mollen did it too. So that's really kind of the same thing happening now, 2 decades later. A few passings to note. Of course, there is the death of Dennis Odell, which happened on December the 30th. Dennis was given an associate producer credit on the Beatles' first film, A Hard Day's Night, working with producer Richard Lester. Odell also is given credit for persuading John Lennon to take a film role in Lester's How I Won the War, for which Dennis was also listed as an associate producer. But he took on a full producer's credit for the Beatles' made-for-TV film of Magical Mystery Tour. And he was also the producer for The Magic Christian, starring Peter Sellers with Ringo. Prior to working with the Beatles, he had produced 6 films, including 1962's The Playboy of the Western World. And after the Beatles, he produced a number of big films, including Sidney Lumet's 1973 film, The Offense, Richard Lester's 1975 Flashman-based Royal Flash, and perhaps most successful film, his most successful one being 1976's Robin and Marion, which starred Sean Connery and Audrey Hepburn. The Beatles paid a little tribute to Dennis in the song, You Know My Name, Look Up the Number. But you hear John say, Good evening and welcome to Slaggers featuring Dennis O'Bell. He said Bell, not Bell. And later, let's hear it for Dennis O'Bell. And he also was responsible for loaning the Beatles Twickenham Studios when they needed it for the Get Back, Let It Be sessions. Dennis died of natural causes in Almeria, Spain. God bless him. He lived to be 98.
Wow.
And Paul McCartney noted the passing of BBC DJ and broadcaster and fellow Liverpudlian, Janice Long, who was also the first female presenter on England's Top of the Pops. And I'm wearing this shirt right here, Woodstock, from Michael Lang.
Yes, indeed.
One of the co-creators of Woodstock, who passed away at the age of 77. Such an amazing concert that was.
Yes, indeed.
Such an important part of rock history right there. And so this is for you, Michael. And that's all the news.
Wow. One thing, Scott here says, don't forget George is nominated for a Grammy for All Things Must Pass 50th anniversary.
Yeah, we brought that up.
Aware of that.
Yeah, I think we did mention it on the last episode.
Oh, I didn't even remember. Okay.
Our last episode?
Yeah, because it was nominated for the box set for the
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ken, for that. I mean, I'm always learning something. I'm always, spending more money thanks to you in the news segment.
I don't think I'm any help there.
It's all your fault.
Anyway.
Right, it is. It's been your fault since 2012, Ken, when I discovered things we said today. But anyways, today we're talking about the 50th anniversary of Wildlife. Sorry about the glare. Looks like Joe's got the was it the Capitol release there?
It's the bonus track.
Or is that the 93 release?
It's
With
bonus
the bonus
tracks.
track. Yeah, that's the 93 Paul McCartney collection release there.
All right.
Oh, cool. A few things about this, as we before we get started, it was released December 7th of 71. Had a kind of a poor showing in the UK. It went to number 11. In the US, it was number 10. They rehearsed a lot of these tracks at Rude Studios before going into EMI and recording these tracks. And Denny Sywell has gone on record saying that he believes that 5 of these tracks were recorded in one take, which was, I think, pretty amazing. So coming on 71, I know Joe and Ken, they were pretty young at that time, and myself and Kit, we were still not on
the face of the earth.
Not on the face of the earth. Thank you.
Oh,
very
come
much.
on! You were 17 if you were a day.
But anyway, before we get into like the meat and potatoes of this, I just want to get everybody's general impression of the album when they first heard it, and if you remember the first time where you got it. And Kit, let's start with you.
When you said where you first got it, I'm trying to remember. It was so so long ago. It definitely was far into my McCartney fandom. I know that for sure. And it was kind of a reaction of what. I remember that. I do remember that because it was, it just sounded so different from what I was used to. I mean, my introduction to Paul was as yours, was the 80s, polished, and so when I was going back to some of the Wing stuff, I mean, even listening to like Band on the Run or something, to listen to this. I mean, it's like the polar opposite.
Right.
I mean, it is so like, raw and just sounded like it. I mean, I know it was recorded at Abbey Road, but I mean, it could have been recorded at home almost. I mean, it has that kind of feel.
Right.
And it also was sort of a time capsule in a way. I mean, it has that kind of, I don't know if hippie's the right word, but it just has that kind of, homegrown, back to nature, sort of feel to it. And so it just wasn't what I expected, you know,
Right.
and because I didn't know the whole story about Paul
Right.
probably
And,
when I
and
heard
we'll
this.
yeah, and we'll get into the story and the
Yeah,
approach
exactly,
in here
yeah.
in a minute. So
So yeah, but that was my initial reaction. Probably was kind of a big question mark when I
Right.
first heard it.
yeah,
Yeah.
because like you, I mean, it was like you, kid. I mean, it was later on too. It was
Yeah.
probably for me listening to the whole album was probably around 99, 2000 when I was discovering those Paul McCartney collection CDs, those imports from the UK,
Yeah.
and I was collecting all them. You got a couple of bonus tracks on there, and I instantly gravitated towards this album. I thought it was really good. There's some great standout tracks out there. So I didn't have any really issues about this album on first listen, but when I listened to his whole catalog at that time and complete as a complete body of work, that's when I just went back and I thought, okay, maybe there's some issues about this that I would love to talk about with other people. And then here,
Yeah.
2 years later, I get the opportunity to finally talk about it with, people. But I don't know about you, Kit, but I don't know if you've heard, you had like family members or other people that other in the Beatles community who were like negative on this album. So it took a while before I actually finally listened to this album as well, because I always heard, well, just skip that one because
Yes.
it's not one of his better works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think probably that may have colored my impression of it a little
Right.
bit, when I read biographies of him like that and Ram.
Right.
Probably it was the case of both of those where it's just like, yeah, just skip those, those were, critically panned
Right.
and,
Right.
just, yeah. So I think that probably colored my opinion of it too.
Okay, cool. All right, Ken?
Well, I have to admit that when this album first came out, I probably wasn't even aware of it because I was always a top 40 listener.
Right.
My whole life in the 60s and the 70s, and there were no hits from this album. And in those days, I wouldn't have even thought about or may not even been aware of something like Beatles Monthly magazine to find out Beatle Fan hadn't started yet. Yes, there was some press given to the album, but I still, even at a very young age, wasn't picking up Rolling Stone or anything like that. So I certainly was aware of the first McCartney album and Ram, and I was very much aware of Red Rose Speedway when it came out because it had My Love on it, a #1 hit. So I know I got Red Rose Speedway when it first came out, and I probably got Wildlife close to the same time, not really being aware that it was out at all. And I always liked the album from the start. I just thought that it fit very well with all the other music that he had done. From the first McCartney album on, there was always a lot of rawness to the music from the first 3 albums there, although there was a lot more, I hate to say polish and Ram, it's more produced Ram and much more structured, and you still had orchestration, on stuff like Uncle Albert and Backseat of My Car. And, but at the same time, if you're used to all this acoustic stuff from the McCartney album, like Every Night or Teddy Boy or those songs and Heart of the Country, then Bip Bop, I'm very comfortable with, and Some People Never Know, I'm very comfortable with those songs. Overall, I would say even early on, I loved half the album. I thought half the album was really great. And I liked the rest. I never disliked anything from it.
Okay.
And later on, you learn about, because I wasn't paying too much attention to what the critics were saying. Later on, you could see the first few albums from McCartney were just, raked over the coals by the critics. Yeah. But I'm glad to see all these years later that it's, a lot of his stuff is being reassessed.
Absolutely. Yes.
Especially from this time period. So.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about that as well. Joe?
Well, I have no recollection of it when it first came out. I was kind of young and I wasn't really into the collecting, although I have very fond memories of Uncle Albert when it was a hit single, because I listened to Top 40 radio. when I was young. So yeah, it just passed me right by until I became really into the collecting and filling in holes and things like that in the catalog. And I probably, my memories are clear with a lot of these things. When did I first get them? Where did I buy them? But this one I don't really remember, except that I probably got to it late, maybe like in the later 70s, 77, something like that, maybe. And I'd always heard it was, Paul's worst album, and things like that. I don't let critics decide my feelings. But
Good.
at the time, my feeling first listening to it was very much opposite of what it is today. Okay, back then, I didn't care for it much. I just seemed, again, very, I don't know, doodly, primitive kind of thing. Not as slick as I would expect, maybe. But then again, as I say, without bringing it too much up to date, right at this point, it's the opposite now. That's what the things I didn't like about it then are what I admire about it and enjoy and reach for off the shelf now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I've said this before, I really do understand, I guess, why a lot of people who had grown up really hardcore first generation and were of an older age, maybe, maybe like 15, 14, 15 when the Beatles were here. I can understand when they went through the whole Beatles career, why maybe once they got done with the release of Let It Be, they were a little bit confused by albums like this from Paul at first, even Ram to a degree. Though now we all scratch our heads, those of us that love Ram, say, how could that have been?
Right.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
But I kind of get that. I've always understood those people that think they're thinking Long and Winding Road, they're thinking Let It Be. This is this guy, Blackbird, and I'm trying to think of all the songs, but you get the drift. So now it's wrongheaded. It's so cool to me now that Paul did this period, this early period of his. Is very cool, and actually gives him a shot in the arm. I think it's more than a bad thing for him. It's a good notch in his belt.
Right. And I would think that also another thing that may have confused people at that time too was that it was just labeled Wings. There was no Paul McCartney on the album cover. So I mean, and then so much so that they, I think the studio, I'm sure, made them change it to Paul McCartney and Wings for Red Rose Speedway. Right. But I want to talk about one thing that still kind of irks me a little bit. And it's not because I dislike this album, because I've said a million times that I really enjoy this album. But the one thing that still irks me about this album is the approach that he took to this album and what he was influenced by. He was influenced by Dylan and his quick schedule in the studio. Get in there, get it done quick. And yes, he had a new band, and they wanted to start from scratch. And I get that, and but he just did that to the year before with McCartney, so in a way I kind of feel like he's undervaluing the Denny's in a way, because here he is, he's got very capable people, not necessarily Linda, but he's got the two Denny's that are very capable of doing great stuff, and then here he is just you're almost back to square one again, just like with McCartney. So I mean, that is always kind of confused me a little bit, why he would do that. Ken, do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I never looked at it that way, but that does kind of make some sense. But I think Paul is someone who lives in the moment and does what he feels like in the moment, and could be influenced by something like, and of course, I'm sure it doesn't sound anything like Dylan's New Morning album, which is what he was influenced by here. But it could also be that he poured so much effort into Ram, and that's such a much more disciplined album, and that didn't work for him.
Right.
So how can he win? I want to make one important point here, because you mentioned that Wildlife went to number 10 in the US and number 11 in the UK, and I know that you just did a show on Two Legs on Wildlife too, and it was referred to as being a flop. And I know by a lot of people's standards, number 10 is not a flop.
Oh, absolutely.
But in the rest of the world, that album went top 10, and in most countries it went top 5.
Mhm.
So I would hardly consider that to be, a flop or a failure in any way. It's just that if you're a Beatle, there are
Right.
some people who think
Yeah.
if it's
So-
not number one,
Right.
By his standards.
It's
Yeah.
exactly.
But yeah, I did think it was a very gutsy move on his part, not just to record an album this way, but to launch Wings that way.
Right.
You would have thought that he would have tried to do something more along the line of, like Abbey Road,
Mhm.
even. But he didn't. And I just think that Paul sometimes just goes with his gut
Right.
very often. And sometimes he's praised for doing that. Sometimes he's damned for doing that.
Mm.
And that's what he felt like doing in the moment.
Right.
And now we look back at these songs and we love the very simple raw production
Right.
of it. There's a certain charm that the early McCartney albums have. I know a lot of people now that prefer Paul's music pre-Band on the Run
Yes.
to Band on the Run.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's what makes the world go around, all these
Yeah.
different opinions, but not
Right.
really.
And I'm glad you brought up Ram, because too, it's interesting because then he's got all these leftovers from Ram as well,
Uh-huh.
which I think if, maybe shorten a song or two here on Wildlife, I think of songs like A Love for You, I think would be perfect song for Wildlife. Little Woman Love, Hey Diddle. I mean, I think these tracks that were recorded prior to Wildlife, would make great a band, first band album instead of 3 6-minute songs and little
Right.
short bips and here and there. But Kit, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and this, this may be, well, I was going to say this may be an unpopular opinion, but actually Paul mentioned this in an interview. I think it was one of the Paul Denoyer interviews they did, where even Paul said, the approach he took, where it was doing this, first take, in 2 weeks and moving on, that he I don't think he regrets doing it, but he said, because I chose that approach, we didn't have the time to perhaps, polish those songs and flesh them out as much as, I would have liked. And that is kind of an issue I've always had with this album, that I think, some editing would have been good. With you just mentioned the songs that are over 6 minutes, because I've always thought that there are certain songs, and we'll probably get to those in a few minutes, but certain ones that if he had cut them in half, they would have been better, a little sharper. And others that I think if again spend a little more time, on the lyrics or the the musicianship is fine.
Right.
I mean, that's not an issue, but it just does some of it does have kind of a hurried quality to it that doesn't always work for me. And so, I mean, there's nothing wrong with rawness. There's nothing wrong with a more, I like stripped down production. I mean,
Right.
that's not my issue. I like that. But there is kind of a price to be paid for that kind of an approach, that kind of hurried approach. Your songs better be damn good to, really solid
Right.
for that kind of quick, approach. And
Yeah.
all the songs on here,
Right. And plus, when I think about his influence from Dylan might be the only person I would consider a better songwriter than Paul. I mean, Paul, I think melody wise and musical wise, Paul is 10 times better. But if you're going to come into the studio and do, these ad lib tracks, fine. But when Dylan goes in the studio, I think all these tracks are already written as is, and they're going to go in and he's just going to already rehearse them 100 times and just go in and record them, So I think there is a little difference there between Paul and Dylan, maybe. Joe?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, that's what I like so much about this now. I always say, Paul with the Beatles and on his own was such a, perfectionist in a lot of ways, trim this down, make sure this
Right.
is a little cleaner, edit this, get the best take and everything. Don't put out a bum take or whatever. And that's why I think this stands out. If you want that kind of thing, you've got, I don't know how many hours
Right.
of Paul McCartney, gems that are perfectly recorded and everything. That's kind of like what I enjoy about it these days. That's how I finally came to like it. I mean, something like Mumbo. I love that. You just like to still alive. Say whatever nonsense comes into your mind for
Right.
just a generic rock hootenanny. I
Right.
love that. And bip bop I've always enjoyed for what it is, a little ditty, probably for the kids, maybe. I don't know. I like that, the way he just goes on saying the bip bop bit. I got to tell you, it's for me, it's addictive. I could listen to that for like 15 minutes. To tell you the truth, it's one
There's
of
probably
those
a
songs.
15-minute take out there somewhere.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's songs like that. I don't know, songs
Mm.
like that. I mentioned like Funky Town or Fly Robin Fly or something that's catchy. And I heard one the other day on the radio and oldies, and I can't remember. A Rubber Band Man. Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Right.
Great
if
song.
it's something grabs me,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
catchy. I could
Those
almost get
songs.
lost in it for like an hour.
Yep.
Anyway,
Kind of
Yeah.
like Check My Machine.
Right.
exactly. That's one of my favorites.
That's
songs.
funny. Another thing. Go ahead, Ken. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, yeah, I agree that there are times throughout Paul's solo career when I wish he trimmed some of the songs down. I think the title track to Wildlife goes on too long.
Yes.
And I know some people think
little
that
long.
some people
Yeah.
never know goes on too long, but I love it at that length.
Oh yeah.
You
I
know?
yeah. I like
Those
it at
two,
that
yeah,
length
those
too.
two are a little long, maybe. Yeah,
Right.
maybe a little.
However, you can cut the beginnings ending of because when you go on, and some people never know, has that kind of the same ending as kind of like Chicago's Beginnings does, where it's the bongos and the sticks.
yeah.
And, it's you cut that part out. That's like almost a minute right there. But anyways, I also think that another problem that some people might have with this album is the fact that it opens with two songs that are arguably people might say are his worst songs of all time as well. I mean, what do you guys
Well, I agree with you that if you were going to poll people, most people would put those two near the bottom as well as the album near the bottom.
Right.
But again, all I could do is reiterate that's for me is different. It's just different.
Right. Yeah.
I like the fact that it's not what we're used to hearing. Well, I say used to hearing too, like maybe what came after now in retrospect. You're opening up with a Band on the Run, or you're opening up with Too Many People or something like that. I don't know. That's what I like about it, is that it's so different.
Right.
I totally
Okay.
agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I totally agree with what Joe's saying. And I love Mumbo to death. I mean,
Yeah.
just picture watching Paul with this band jamming on something like that. It'd be fascinating. Just the way that Paul sings, the throaty voice, how powerful it is, and just whatever enters his brain at that time. I mean, if the exact same song was done by the Beatles,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
and Paul was singing it, and he was
Put it
making
on the
up
White
stuff,
Album. Right.
we'd all be saying, "Wow, this is fantastic!"
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't agree that it's among the worst. I don't think Bip Bop is one of his greatest compositions, but it does have
No.
a nice charm to it that I've liked, just like a lot of the acoustic stuff that Paul was doing in the early 70s and at various times throughout his solo career. But I wouldn't necessarily say those are two of his worst songs. I really enjoy, I especially love Mumbo.
Yeah.
I can listen to, more songs like Mumbo with Paul just improvising and making up stuff. And the band sounds great doing that
Yeah.
song.
Yeah, they're a good jam band, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. Kit?
It's I mean, I'm gonna have some tomatoes thrown at me because Driving Rain is still to me the yardstick of the worst. I'm sorry. Driving Rain is still to me the worst Paul album, so no, this is not the worst. Yeah, no, not comparatively. No. This isn't though, and I wouldn't go as far to say, oh my God, this is the worst album Paul ever did. No, definitely not in Driving Rain territory. But
I'll agree.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me take some pressure off you.
Okay, thank you. I know. What do you call Thriving Pain? Isn't that what you call it?
The tomato.
Oh, thank you. Yep. And But I admit this isn't an album that I return to a lot, I mean, because I guess I like, in this kind of style, this kind of homegrown, back to nature, simpler production kind of style. I tend to turn toward McCartney, more, I admit. But there are some nice moments on here, which we'll
get to that.
Sure, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
But there are some nice moments. But I admit, it took a long time for me to really warm up to this album at all. It just was not an album that I connected to for a good while. But no, I wouldn't say it's its worst. No,
Fair.
Absolutely not.
Okay, fair enough. Ken, I want to go to you next because, you've stated multiple times that you're, top 40 guy. I mean, you listen to, top 40 and, especially on the singles aspect. And we all know that Love is Strange was the proposed opening single for this album, but it never came to be. Now, the question I have for you, Ken, is now, do you think Love is Strange would have made a good single, or was there something else on this album that you think would have been a better first single?
I love Love is Strange to death, but I would definitely go with Tomorrow more than any other song.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so commercially appealing.
Yeah.
It's so damn catchy. Paul's vocals are amazing. It's not too long. It's just right. It's in that 3.5 minute range right there.
Right.
I think that would have been very suitable as a single. And if that had done well, I would have released a second single like Love is Strange.
Okay. Joe, what do you think?
I concur with that. I always thought Tomorrow was the best choice for a single, although arguably maybe the ending, just for radio purposes, maybe they could do it, tone it down when he a little bit or something, do a different kind of fade or an ending or something. I don't know, but overall, I think it's really a pop potential.
Okay, Kit.
Oh yeah, Tomorrow, hands down for the single. That's one of my favorite songs off the album. I think it's got, it's just catchy. Just has a kind of a sing-along quality to it, in a way. So I definitely would do that. I do also like Some People Never Know. I think that's got a really pretty quality to it, beautiful harmonies.
Right.
Not as a lead single for sure, but maybe as a follow-up or third single or something like that. But Tomorrow, yes, lead single.
Yeah, I agree unanimous here. Tomorrow should have been, the single for the album. I think it has at least a top 10 hit all over it. I think this is the song on the album that showed us what was to come for Wings, with those great backing vocals throughout the song, and then just the great music throughout the song on that as well. I agree about Some People Never Know maybe being a good follow-up. I mean, you could easily cut 2.5 minutes from that song, get a nice DJ edit or radio edit, whatever you want to call it, out there, and maybe top 20, 25 if potentially, I think, just because again,
not number one,
right? But then again, you think this was the beginning of that singer-songwriter era or genre, if you want to call it, and I think those songs blend nicely to that genre of music.
That's an interesting point, because I was thinking about that as I was listening to this again, that, this does dovetail very nicely into that singer-songwriter sound of this period, that, the acoustic, personal kind of songwriting, minimal production. Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Gotcha. Cool. So let's get to some of our personal favorites. What about these songs do you like about them, Joe? I mean, what are the standout tracks for you on this album?
Well, I already talked about Mumbo, and Bip Bop. I enjoyed those. I like pretty much every track. Dear Friend,
Hmm.
I love that. I mean, and we found out, Paul was talking to John really in
Right.
that, and even without that, I just love it. It's very sentimental. It's got a real nice feel to it that I enjoy. Um, some people never know. I like Wildlife. It is a little long, goes overstays its welcome a little bit for me, but I just love his screams,
Yeah.
his when he does that kind of like intense vocalizing that he does. It's funny how I look at these tracks and I'm thinking like there's a lot of variety on here. I didn't used to think that. These days I do. I Am Your Singer is Linda Strack. It's nice. I've always said how much I enjoy Linda's voice, actually, and
We're
how
gonna
I
get
think
into
she
that
was
as
always,
well.
always an asset to Wings, especially with the harmonies, and especially as they got more and more into the '70s and stuff. And it's not a great song, but I like it a lot more than say maybe Cook of the House,
Yeah.
something like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, looking at the tracks. I mean, yeah. I mean, I take it for what it is now, rather than bemoaning what it isn't, which is what, I think a lot of people were doing in the beginning.
Right. Good point.
But I thought it takes time because it was a grower for me,
Yeah.
It wasn't one of these that was right instantaneously enjoyed by me. And
Great.
now I just think it stands out so well. And in the whole overall catalog that Paul has. And I like too that it's one guy's opinion could be all there is. That's that wonderful story that Paul told. You know what it is when he was driving or something, and somebody was in a van or something, and he was going camping or something. He said, "Hey man, I'm going camping. I'm going into the woods, and I'm taking this
That's right.
best album he ever made." He says,
Hmm.
he had the album with him, and I love stories like that to give Paul a little bit of a little boost. So yeah, I like it.
Kid?
It's not his best,
Right.
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure where it would go for me these days. Mid tier, mid to lower tier, but I enjoy it.
Cool.
Yep.
Kit?
Well, we've talked a little bit about it already. Tomorrow, great, beautiful song. Some people never know, as I mentioned, just really fits sort of the freewheeling spirit of much of the record. Dear Friend, it has such a kind of haunting quality to it, and I do wish at times Paul would have added a bit more lyrics to
Lyrically,
it.
right. Agreed.
When he
Mm.
keeps doing that, like, oh, come
Right.
on, Paul, you could have added some more lyrics. But it's a beautiful, I mean, it still has such a haunting
Yes.
quality to it, which I like. Wildlife, wish he'd cut it shorter, but I do like his vocals on it, and I like the backing vocals on it. The part that whatever happened
Right.
to, I love
Right.
that part.
Mm.
I just appreciate. Oh, and of course on many of these songs, Denny Sywell's drums,
Mhm.
his kind of Ringo-esque drum fills on Wildlife, I like quite a bit. And this is kind of funny for me because I actually don't like Love is Strange, that
Mm.
song at all.
Oh.
That song, I have to admit, has always kind of gotten on my nerves. But this version, the reggae take on it is kind of fun. It's still not a favorite song of mine, but I kind of like the that sort of lighter take on it, and they sort of take it to another. He and Linda take it to another place, and Linda really just harmonized so well
Right.
with Paul, and of course harmonized so well on these other tracks I mentioned as well. So it has kind of a fun catchiness to it that makes me think, okay, maybe I can like this song a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the Mickey and Sylvia version, no. But this one, okay. I can
Oh,
deal
that's
with
interesting. That's
this.
interesting.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say to Kit, you don't like that part in Mickey and Sylvia where they're going back and forth. Come here, lover boy.
Oh,
Cringeworthy, huh?
Paul and Linda should have
No.
done that back and forth. you know?
oh, definition of cringe.
I definitely agree with you, Kid, about the dear friend aspect of it. You know,
Yeah.
a little bit more on the lyrics, maybe. And we should point out too, because timeline is really everything about this, because
Right.
you know, a lot of people thought that, I mean, you can still look at it as the response to How Do You Sleep, because it came out after Imagine. However, this, I mean, if you you know, research it, it really was started, you know, in 70 as more of a response to Lennon's you know, comments in what, like the Rolling Stone stuff, and you know, and you know, kind of all the other comments in the press. So I mean, it was really more of that than How Do You Sleep. I mean,
Right.
in a way, you know, Paul really, you know, yeah, he gives them that, you know, that little dig in Too Many People, but you know, Paul really isn't a, you know, vicious writer. You know, he's not
No.
really out to get you, you know,
Right.
per
No.
se, you know. But
You know, I don't think he has. Yeah, I don't think he has the nerve to do it.
no, I don't.
too much.
I really don't. So I mean, some people might look at this as kind of like a cop out response to John, because it's not really anything. There's no substance to this song, really.
Though, you know, that could be looked at as an asset too. You know,
Mhm.
for Paul's, you know, too.
Yeah.
And writing to Vanity Fair might be another matter entirely.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But even that still isn't really, you know, vicious.
And it you know, of course, it's kind of discreet in a way. You know,
Yeah,
too.
sure. Yeah, sure.
And still to this day, he
Yeah.
hasn't said who
No,
the song was
right.
about,
Oh, yeah.
even
No.
though the fans suspected it's about Heather Mills.
Heather, right.
Yeah.
So Ken, the
Well-
the main highlights for you on this.
As I said earlier, I think half the album is great. Tomorrow is a great song. If I ever was to put together a McCartney compilation, as I have, no compilation's complete without Tomorrow. That's to me the most
Right.
essential song on this album.
Yes.
So damn catchy. McCartney's vocals are great. I love the screaming at the end when there's the false ending.
Right.
Yeah.
And Some People Never Know is a gem to me. And one of the things I love about that song is the middle part when they don't sing at all and there's
Right.
just harmonies.
Yeah.
I love that effect. So you do hear the great harmonies there in the band with Paul and Linda, especially on that song. I do love Dear Friend, and I'm glad that you said what you did, that it needs more lyrics, because I always wish there was like a middle eight or something to
Yes.
connect the verses.
Mm.
But the one thing, you know, we were talking before about supposedly 5 of the songs are the first take. If these are the first take, they're damn near perfect as first
Right.
takes, you know? And when you listen to, like in the box set for Wildlife, the demos for Dear Friend, just Paul on the piano,
Right.
his voice is just perfect.
Mhm.
He doesn't miss a note. And it's the control of his voice on that song. And it's so heartfelt at the time. It's a wonderful song, although I still wish that he put more effort into the lyrics and
Yeah.
added more. And I do really love Love Is Strange. That was always one of my favorite tracks on the album. I like a reggae arrangement of the song. I thought it was really cool. And I've grown to really love songs that have long introductions. And Love Is Strange, it's almost like a minute before Paul starts to sing. It kind of reminds me of, well, this was a year later, like Papa Was a Rolling Stone. You know, I love songs like that before you get to the vocals. You're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. There's like this anticipation before you get to hear the lead vocals. I like the whole arrangement, the harmonies in the group. And, you know, I love Linda's harmonies, which are really an asset. And it became that for Paul's solo career and with Wings especially. Certainly on Love Is Strange and Some People Never Know really shines right there. So I mentioned those 4 songs. Those are great. I basically really like every song on the album. My least favorite's Bip Bop, but I love Mumbo to death. I do like Wildlife, although I do think it should be trimmed.
Yep.
And Paul's vocals are amazing. I like I Am Your Singer. You know, I like the fact that Linda takes a lead vocal in one of the verses.
Yeah.
And it's not an incredible lead vocalist voice, but that's not what Paul was looking for.
Yeah.
When it came to Linda, he always said that he wanted more of like a Shangri-La's type sound for vocals, not like a real trained vocalist sound like anything operatic or anything like that. And Linda fit the bill, and he made it work so that her harmonies blended so well with his,
Right.
and with the band, and
Yeah.
with Denny Lane.
Mm.
So yeah, but this is really, to me, it's a pretty good album all the way through, for the most part.
For the most part, I mean, my favorite. I'm the B side of this one. I mean, I think the flip side to this album is, for me, is the Standout album was, Some People Never Know, Tomorrow, Dear Friend, Even I Am Your Singer, which again, I've really come to love. I mean, I guess maybe we can consider this the first real duet from Paul in his solo career. And I think Linda is fine on this. I think she's fine on the whole album, really. And obviously, Tomorrow and Some People Never Know really are the standout tracks, I think, on this album. So, but again, we could, if we could have shortened a couple of those tracks and maybe get one more, real song on there, if you will, I think, maybe like I said, again, a Love for You, or Little Woman Love, or something like that. But it is what it is. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because when the Ram box set came out, and there are certain books that you could read where all the stuff that Paul worked on during Ram, and it was so amazing. It was like 2 albums worth of material. But I didn't really know until the box set came out that I Lie Around started around that time.
Yeah.
Obviously later on, Denny Lane added his vocals to it.
Right.
But man, I Lie Around would have been perfect on Wildlife.
Little Lamb Dragonfly may have worked on this album as well. I mean, that was started in the Ram sessions as well. I know it's not one of Joe's favorites.
No, it's one of the most overrated. I don't hate it, but it's just I'm the only person in the world. No, every time I say that, I'm the only person. I have a couple of people in the comments say, no, I agree, but I don't hate it. But I noticed, by the way, there was a couple of comments citing Lavatory Lil as an example.
Yeah, but here again, it's a playful song, though. It's not purposely, in my opinion. I don't take it as a purposely vicious song.
How close can you get?
Well, yeah.
Big boys bickering? I don't know.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he was a little angry in that.
Right. But again, though, too, that's kind of playful musically as well.
And it's not about anybody particular, maybe despite repeated warnings.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about Linda for a second, because there was a big to do about Yoko's involvement in John's songs, especially on those singles. And then a year later, on Sometime in New York City, we got a lot of Yoko on that album. Do you think maybe obviously we know what we know now, but at the time, do you think maybe this is one of the things that maybe factored in the hate for Wildlife, was maybe Linda's involvement as well, Ken?
I think that probably could contribute to it. You're dealing with someone who didn't have any background at all in music, and Paul had to train her how to play the piano, and people asked, what business does she have?
Right.
And I think that Paul was probably thinking that he really wanted to get back on the road real bad. He didn't want to leave the family behind and go on the road. So might as well have Linda in the group too. And as long as she can do the basic stuff on the piano, and so much of the stuff that she did was fairly simple piano stuff, but she nailed it. It came down to that and working on her voice. And I think, no one's going to say she was a great singer, but she definitely added a lot to Paul's music and Wing's music in particular. And I think that in the end, in the end,
I'm laughing at you.
I think that it was a benefit to Paul's music. It became part of Paul's signature sound.
Right. and she got criticized for it. She took it on the chin, and and she got better over time. And I think that's great of her. I mean, I admire the fact that she stuck it in there. I mean, she could have easily just said, piss off, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Get a better player, but she stuck at it, and you gotta admire her for that. Kit.
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly her harmonies really became key to the Wings sound. I mean, I was thinking as I was listening again to Wildlife. I mean, like listening to even the song Wildlife or Tomorrow or something, when you could really hear her backing vocals come in. I just remember thinking, wow, that's the beginning of what became the Wings sound. I mean, it's just like you could immediately hear those backing harmonies and just be like, oh, that's Wings.
Right.
I mean, that's just like, I mean, it just gives it away. And she was I think a important part of that. Really became a crucial part of that. So I think in that sense, yeah, I think she was a real part of forming that sound. And you're right. I mean, she took a lot of crap. I mean, she really did. Part of it was good old fashioned sexism. I think part of it was, what is she doing up there? She's not a musician. It was a bit of everything. And boy, she was tough. I mean, she really, you gotta give her credit. I mean, just amazing how she kept at it. And as you said, she got better. But I think it's really the harmonies that was her biggest contribution.
And we're getting a couple comments here. Now, you get a lot of people that say Paul hasn't done anything good since the Wings days. We're getting a few comments here that, lately, his albums are missing backing vocals in a way. Especially, since like maybe Driving Rain, where we haven't had that. Linda, obviously she's not there anymore. So maybe his albums have been missing a little something, whether it was Linda's backing vocals or not. And I'm glad people are mentioning that, because she really has become an essential part of his canon.
And
catalog.
incidentally, yeah, absolutely. And incidentally, some people will say, well, but she wasn't a strong singer on her own. Right. Have you ever heard a lot of the Beach Boys sing solo? I mean, when you hear them sing just by themselves, I mean, it's really interesting. When you hear them, I mean, they're not really strong vocalists on their own, but of course, when they sing together, their harmonies are incredible. I mean, but so that is can be typical of some singers, that they are excellent at harmonies, but don't have strong voices on their own.
Right.
So
and also just to give credit where it's due, you got to give Denny Lane a lot of credit too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because part of the signature sound is Paul, Denny, and Linda together.
True.
Just like the Beatles had John, Paul, and George most of the time. Once in a while, Ringo harmonizing. That was the sound.
Right.
And if you were to take so many of those recordings and you didn't have those harmonies from the 70s through, up to the time when Linda passed away, it'd be a different experience.
Absolutely.
Something would be missing, definitely. Right. And I remember thinking that as soon as Run Devil Run came out and Driving Rain, it's like, I'm missing Linda.
Yeah. Joe?
Oh, well, what can I add? I mean, I said that earlier in the show, and I've said it before. Linda is such an important part of Wings and the sound, and as you said, Denny as well. It's very important having that whole unit together, and it's what made them have their sound in the 70s. As far as we were originally asked, did it have anything to do with Linda? People weren't really warming to this. This album, I think that it could have something to do with it, yeah. And the same thing with Ram, I think, too. Paul and Linda McCartney, maybe. However, I don't think, in a lot of people's eyes and ears, that the songs were really there when they first, heard Wildlife. I think it was more the material, than just the Linda thing, although it was a factor for most people of the day.
Also,
Okay.
you're getting a lot less songs.
Right.
You know, you're getting
That's
8
another
songs on an
True.
album.
Right.
Yep.
And I also believe, you know, there's a huge difference between commercial success and critical success. And Paul was certainly lambasted those first 3 albums in particular, and even Red Rose Speedway to some degree. But they all did well commercially, if you think about it.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
if I may say, I think a lot of that is the Beatle fallout.
Sure.
You know, or one of the Beatles. You know, let's buy the albums and stuff, at least to hear it, if nothing else.
That's part of it,
Yeah.
but you can't force people to buy this stuff. A lot of the success of the solo Beatles came from new fans that discovered it from hearing it on the radio. It wasn't all Beatle fans.
Yeah, well,
And-
Wildlife, as you said, wasn't played much, if at all. I don't know,
Well,
no single anyway.
There was no
And
single.
now, I think Paul's had some better material the last 20 years, say, roughly.
Mhm.
It's more appealing than, say, what's on Wildlife, and it doesn't do as well, you know.
Right.
So
That's right.
it has a lot to do with it's the Beatles. It's one of the Beatles, I think, you know.
No,
originally.
there's much more to it than that.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, you know,
I'm
I
just-
like the stuff personally, but let's be honest about it.
No,
People love
I'm
the
not-
Beatles, and that's why they
I'm-
bought them.
I'm not denying that part of the success of the solo Beatles stuff came from the fact that they were Beatles. But when you're having hit records and you're on top 40 radio and you've got little kids listening who had no idea that these people were Beatles in the first place, some of them bought that music. And there was that running joke throughout the 70s. Did you know that Paul was in a band before
Right.
Wings?
Yeah.
That happened for a reason.
That was later on. Talking about Wildlife.
But even still, and even if some of the success that they had as solo artists is due to the fact that they were Beatles, so what? People still bought it.
I'm not judging them. I'm just saying why I think it is. You got to be able to criticize the ones you love sometimes. You just have to be able to do it.
I've been critical of the Beatles. You just have to remember when I've said it.
You just gotta listen more. You look
Yeah.
This album, I mean, I mentioned earlier the 2 Dennys, and they're accomplished musicians in their own right. I really think, you know, Denny Sywell was a very accomplished sessions drummer, very sought after, you know, sessions drummer. And I sometimes feel, you know, that maybe he was underutilized on this album. Even though I get the whole, you know, getting back to basics, and this is a band, it's a new start, you know, and Denny in a way too. But maybe Denny was a little less as accomplished musician as Sywell, maybe. I guess maybe that you can argue that. But those two became a very, especially Denny Lane, you know, with his backing vocals, like you said, Ken. But Sywell in particular, I think, you know, you could arguably maybe call him the most versatile drummer that Paul ever had, and, you know, with him as a throughout his career. I mean, wouldn't you think, maybe, Ken?
Well, he certainly did a lot of session work.
Right.
And right before Ram, he worked with Billy Joel on Cold Spring Harbor.
Right.
So he was a lover of jazz and recorded jazz and worked with jazz. So he knew a lot of different styles. Kind of like, in a way, Lawrence Juber is
right.
that way.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
Lawrence Juber
Right.
did a lot of session work too and worked with so many different people. But yeah, you probably could say that. Yeah, I'd have to do a little bit more research on some of the later drummers,
Right.
like Blair Cunningham or Chris Whitten and what they
right.
did. And Abe Laboriel has done a lot of work prior
Yep.
to
Right.
Paul, working with people like Sting, you know, and they only want the best.
Yeah.
Some musicians like that.
That's right.
So, but definitely Denny was so accomplished already by the time that he started working with Paul.
And Kit, your thoughts on the 2 Dennys?
Yeah, I mean, for Denny Sywell, I mean, the fact that he had that jazz background definitely made him stand out from, you know, some of the other Wings drummers. Not to put them down, they you know, were great in their own way. But you know, I remember seeing him at a Fest for Beatles fans do a drum clinic, and he did live his drum parts from Ram. And it was really live. It was really great to see him do that. But you could tell in some ways he was holding back, that he could have done even more. But that's a different style. Rock drumming is a different style than jazz drumming. He definitely had technique and skill. And sure, he could have done a little bit, probably more on this, on Wildlife, but it's a different style of drumming. So it's not, jazz drumming wasn't called for here. For sure. As far as Denny Lane goes, yeah, and in fact, somebody mentioned in the comments earlier about, did we think Denny Lane would have been, upset that Linda got more vocal time than he did, and a vocal solo and that kind of thing. And I don't know, obviously, but he of course would turn out to be a very important player, be an MVP in Wings for sure.
I agree.
Yeah, and he may not be, a quotes technically skilled player like Denny Seiwell in terms of knowing jazz and that kind of thing, but I think he definitely, through his time with the Moody Blues and so forth, I mean, he clearly, I think he was pretty well rounded.
Right. Yep.
As a songwriter, as a guitarist, as a singer. I mean, and I think he had to have been to work that long with Paul and to be that important a player in Wings history. So, so I think he was definitely in that way, just in a different way than Seiwell. I think he was skilled as well.
Cool. Paul wouldn't have taken him if he didn't.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
In the first place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also,
you
got to remember that in the early years of Wings, when they first started to tour, even though Denny Lane didn't have a lead vocal on the Wildlife album, he had a few songs there early on,
right,
with Say You Don't Mind and I Would Only Smile.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul from the very beginning wanted Wings to be recognized as a band.
Yep.
Yeah.
To the point, I've interviewed Denny Seiwell, and I think you just did recently, Tom, on Two Legs, didn't you?
Yep.
That it was very important that each of the members were established, and when they gave interviews, that all the members answered a question. So it wasn't just Paul or Paul and Linda.
Right.
And, just going back to those early years, and then through the Wings Over America tour, Denny Lane had 5 songs that he sang lead to during that time.
Yep.
Jimmy McCulloch got
2,
Medicine
1?
Jar.
No, 1.
Well,
yeah.
2 in the studio, but
right.
1 live with Medicine Jar. So, it was always an effort on Paul's part. He wanted Wings to be recognized as a band, and that's probably why Wildlife was a Wings album and not Paul McCartney and Wings. He didn't want to rely on Paul's name in the first place, and that also could have contributed to why it didn't sell as well as McCartney and Ram.
True.
It still did well.
Yeah,
that's right.
True.
Because a lot of people didn't even know that Wings was Paul McCartney or that there was a band that Paul was in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
That's another factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition to everything we've mentioned,
Yeah. Well, let's get to now. The archive came out. What was it? 19 or 18 or Joe?
Oh yeah. Oh Joe.
Yeah, that's right. Joe. Yeah.
I'm not prepared for that.
Right,
I have the archive, and I should have brushed up on it. But
right. But anyways, I remember when it got announced, and following the Hoffman Forum and seeing people's comments about the release of Wildlife getting an archive release, and the comments coming in saying, "I can't believe I'm going to spend this much on an album that I don't like."
I remember that.
Just that was, I found that pretty comical. But going back now, and those albums that you that throughout McCartney's career that people thought less of, with these releases, they've really been getting a favorable. And I froze. I mean,
you
Tom
just froze.
So
Tom
they've
froze.
been getting a favor. I know where you were going with that, Tom. Let's follow it. They've been getting more favorable.
But yes, I think that's
Yes.
where he was
So
going. Yep.
I did not. Did you notice that with wildlife? I did with didn't necessarily with wildlife. I did notice it with Red Rose Speedway, and also
Mhm.
because of the longer album as
Right.
he originally wanted to do it. Which
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of Red Rose Speedway overall. I like Moments,
Yeah.
but I did really much like that original configuration idea.
Yes.
That I like it better even than the actual regularly released album of
Mhm.
That.
Yep.
Ah,
Oh,
he's back.
oh,
Hey,
Tom's back.
I
Oh,
thought we
wait a
got
minute.
him.
Oh.
Okay,
Hey,
wait a
he's
minute.
frozen.
He's
I
okay.
spoke too
Hang on.
soon.
He's you admitted. Okay, wait. He's coming back. He's coming back. And
This
while
is
he's
not on
coming,
film. This is all coming to you very live before your eyes.
and incidentally, while he's coming back on, we did Talk More Talk. We did do an episode back when Wildlife came out in a box set back in 2019, I believe. So if you want to go back and not right now, but after the show, if you want to go back, I forget which number episode it is, but you can go back and relive the fun of that episode if you want. So it's we go into depth into the box set. So,
Right.
all
Sorry,
right,
I froze up there, I guess.
that's all right. No worries.
That's okay. I had your back.
Yep,
Yeah, thank you.
Joe covered for you.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. But anyways, getting back to the love that it's getting now. I'm very happy that people are seeing this album in a new light. People are appreciating what went into the album. Like Joe, what you said is you're looking at it what it is and rather what it isn't. And it would have been nice if people maybe had taken that approach at the beginning. But seeing it get all this love now, I think it's it's a good thing, really.
I knew a guy that said
Joe?
he came to respect those earlier albums. The first, I don't know, McCartney, Ram, Wildlife, maybe Red Rose Speedway, because it was kind of like Paul being a little more risque. And then later on, he kind of, in his mind, did the more typical, like a sellout almost. I know it's a strong term, but I'm saying what in his mind, Paul did more of what you would expect him to do with Band on the Run kind of thing. So when you look back on it, he liked it like that was an era where he was really just going all out, trying things and doing something he wasn't necessarily that as comfortable with, maybe as polished. And he liked that. I know where he's coming from now.
Right. Ken, final thoughts on the album as a whole, and looking back at it now.
Still, I'm not going to say that I love this album more now than I ever did because I always liked it.
Right.
So it would definitely be in the lower tier of McCartney's albums. But one of the things that we've discussed here several times on this show is that we're living at a time when there's a word that we keep using, trends. The trend is these days that people like simpler production. They don't like polish. They don't like sheen. There are people I know that tell me now they like the stripped down album of Double Fantasy more than the original album when it came out. Not that I would ever consider Double Fantasy to be all that slick, but for that reason, I think a lot of people are looking back to the 70s McCartney, especially the earliest McCartney, and appreciating it more for that reason. More to do with, I think, production than the quality of the songs. I've always been more about the songs than the production, but I like the fact that if you really study Paul's work, there's so many different types of albums that he's made with different types of production, band albums like Wings, albums where he plays all the instruments, something different where he'll play all the instruments and then he'll have members of his band on certain songs. So many approaches, so many different producers, and they all bring something different to the table. Right. There's a lot of people who look at this is something that I was thinking about. I think that you did a show recently, Tom. What was the last great Paul McCartney album or something along those lines?
The first bad, last great, and last good album from McCartney. Yeah.
A lot of people seem to think Chaos and Creation in the Backyard was the last great album from him.
Right.
And I think part of the reason is because it comes closest in style to what McCartney was doing early on when he started out in his solo career. Actually, Flaming Pie is like that too. It's less production, more the real pure McCartney sound of what he had in the 70s, and I just think that that's been a trend for a while and it's been building. And so, I understand what you just said, Joe, that Paul was experimenting a bit and not trying too hard to have a hit record or to have a hit album, although, look at Uncle Albert, as a number one single. Although in England it wasn't released as a single, he probably wasn't thinking single with that song anyway.
Right.
But I understand why people are respecting the early McCartney stuff more and the DIY albums more, because it's more of Paul's true sound without having another producer, I don't want to say interfere, influence his sound, even though ultimately Paul has the final say in everything that he puts out. So I understand that, just like, Kit, when we were talking a while ago and you wish that Rick Rubin would produce Paul, what are you thinking about? It would be more of a return to something like the very early McCartney sound. A lot of people love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
did with Neil Diamond.
Yeah, or Johnny Cash, what Rick Rubin did with Johnny Cash.
Sure.
So and there are those people. I think that also explains in part why a lot of people love the 70s Paul, and once the 80s came in and he was working with different producers, they didn't really care for it as much because it wasn't really what they felt was Paul's real sound. Also, another thing we discussed, which I think is a big factor, is that a lot of people, the music that you hear when you're youngest, teenage years and 20s, is what will impact you the most. And so for a lot of people, they have about a decade or 20 years when that music matters the most to them. By the time you turn around 30, not that you'll never like new music that you hear or new music from veteran artists, but it won't impact you as much.
Right.
So a lot of people look back to that time in the 70s when they loved the Beatles, and then here's the transition into the solo music, and they loved a lot of that stuff, but it was too much to continue beyond a couple of decades there and keep going and following every single thing that Paul did, or whoever your favorite artists are. That's part of the reason why people feel the way that they do. But for a long time, I've been feeling ever since like the 90s that we've been going in that direction with more simple production, stripped down. Unplugged was so big in the 90s, that kind of thing. There's been a movement ever since then where people don't want, overblown production or even, slick or polished production. So they want more of this. So I think that's part of why people are appreciating it more now. Same thing with Ram, especially with Ram, and the first McCartney album.
Gotcha.
And McCartney 3.
Yeah. Kit, final thoughts or comments on Wildlife?
Yeah. I was thinking that, I wonder if, someday if Wildlife is going to have kind of a similar reappraisal to Ram, because it's a little similar in that, that it has that sort of homegrown, homemade kind of feel, a little eccentric, kind of like Ram. And, look at when Ram came out, slammed by critics, and, didn't sell as well by Paul's standards as perhaps, some of his other albums did. I was kind of thinking, I wonder if Wildlife, I don't know if it'll be 50 years from now or if it'll, hopefully not. Hopefully it won't take that long. I wonder if there's going to be a similar appraisal from, indie artists, a new generation who would come upon this album and say, I like this raw sound. I like this, and want to, emulate that in a way, because that's what a number of them did with Ram. I mean, that when they came across that and thought, even though that's more polished than Wildlife was in many ways, but it still had that independent kind of feel to it. And I think, Wildlife, for all its flaws, we've talked a bit about them here, has that spirit, that same kind of spirit. And so, I'm wondering if in the future, if it's going to undergo that same kind of, reappraisal and be discovered by, a new generation of independent indie kind of artists. Who knows?
Possible. Also depends on the trend of music. I mean, I have often seen where, there's this big trend in this certain area genre, and they'll go back to an album, 20, 30 years earlier that kind of maybe had influenced that kind of thing, or maybe have been the first album to be that kind of area. But absolutely, I mean, I don't know if it will carry on as much as like Ram would. I mean, I think that's
right.
like, I know we keep using that word polished, but but I mean, if you're going to put, I kind of think that Ram and Wildlife in a way is maybe apples and oranges in a way.
Yeah.
But I mean, more structured songs. I mean, the more songs.
Right.
I think apples and oranges is a good way of putting it for me, because I mean, I mean, Ram is right now, for a long time now, my number one Paul album. Whereas Wildlife, these days, it's still a lower tier for me. Me personally, out of his studio albums, not the covers or anything like that, it probably would be, I mean, it wouldn't be last, there might be 4 albums or so for me underneath it, personally speaking, taste-wise. But Ram, I mean, it just has great songs on it. It's just, it's great,
I don't think, I don't think
I
it
know
would
what you
ever
mean,
be,
the feel of it.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the feel of it.
Homespun.
Right,
Homespun,
that's what I mean. Yeah, they don't sound identical. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there on that, the homey backyard feeling.
Right.
So you have Ram as like that, and also such great material.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something that's weird about this album too, is because some of these songs on this album, like the Tomorrows and the Some People Never Knows, I find myself listening to those particular songs more than some of the hits as well.
Yeah.
Some of those mid 70s hits.
Well, we've talked about that, Tom. Sometime you and I, like Band on the Run. It's like, enough of Band on the Run kind of thing. We just start. It's so played out. In fact, there was a song on Jeopardy, a question on Jeopardy today. Nobody got I love that when I'm watching these shows and I can't answer anything. And then you think of a fairly simple.
You get that one question per show.
It was something about, there was a song category from the 70s or something. And the question was something about Jet, and who sang about Jet, which was really a dog, but it had the line about I don't know, the hair of 1,000 laces and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm waiting for somebody to answer, and I'm going, Paul McCartney. And they were older. They weren't young either. They weren't like 20 somethings. So they were older. But anyway, where was I going? I forgot where I was going. Yeah. So I will. I'm more inclined to, I'll reach for Wildlife. If I want to hear something, in the car, which, yes, I have a portable player now in my new car. I'm more likely to pull this out rather than Band on the Run, say, or something.
I'm the same way. I can be very affected by certain songs that get played out.
Yeah.
Right.
I tend to always prefer album cuts, and that doesn't mean I don't love the singles.
Right.
But I'd much rather, I don't hear Junior's Farm as much as I would Band on the Run, and I'd much rather hear Junior's Farm today.
Oh,
it doesn't mean I don't love.
It
doesn't mean I don't love Band on the Run.
Yep.
Much rather hear Good Night Tonight, which I rarely ever hear on the radio being played, than say, even Live and Let Die.
Baby,
I Live and Let Die is kind of played out now, but I'll always recognize it as a great song. So.
Great.
Right. Excellent. Well, that was a look at Wings of Wildlife, released in 1971. Thank you all for joining us on this episode. Let's go around the horn and talk about what we've all got going in our other shows and
Why?
Do me
channels.
first. Do me
Okay,
first.
Joe, go ahead.
Okay, I don't have anything going on right now, folks. Currently, there's really not much. All you have to do is subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Mean Mr. Mayo, and I'm getting back into it after all that Get Back stuff. Man, that took a number on all of us. That took quite a
Yeah.
toll. There was a lot of late nights,
Exhausting.
early mornings, all kinds of things, and it's like it was kind of relaxing for a while, and then the holidays came. The reason I wanted to go first was that I don't feel as funny after everyone else gives all their projects, and I'm like nothing. Nothing with stuff coming in the future, of course, more record store videos. People want to know about my record store videos when I visit the record store and stuff like that. I'm going to be doing more of those. And we'll
Excellent.
see what else comes
Cool.
around. I started doing my rant videos again, too.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Stopped. Always something to rant about.
I'm really
Yep.
curious about this new rant you got. I haven't had a chance to watch it only because I'm in that industry that you ranted about.
Oh, that's right. Well, I don't know
yeah.
if maybe I didn't think you use as much as like that. I thought you more as like a chef
Well,
making the food.
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing, though. I mean, because I've been in restaurants I've been in the industry for 30 years, but I worked like restaurants for like the first 25 first 20 years or so in the business. So, I mean, I listened to a lot of people talk about their tips throughout the night.
Yeah, well, it's a rant on tipping.
Yes.
Mhm.
So.
So check it out. Kit, let's go to you.
Okay, well, first, you can reach us here at Talk More Talk on our Facebook page. You can reach us on Twitter at Talk More Talk 1, the number 1. You can email us with your feedback, with your ideas at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. You, of course, can find us right here on this channel. Please subscribe. We are growing thanks to all of you. Thank you so much for all your support. Please tell your friends, and you can also ring the bell to be notified of any future episodes that are coming up. And if you're watching this on the replay, please leave your comments and let us know what you think about this episode and what you think of wildlife. Yeah, please do. And also, you can find us on Podbean and virtually any other podcasting platform you can think of. And you can also find us on Fab4 Radio, thanks to our good friend Beetle Ed. So thank you as always. And he streams many of our individual shows as well. So I think that's everything about our own show and where you can find us. As far as I go, jumped right into things right after first
Sounds
of
like
the
an
year.
iPad or an Apple product. iGo.
Yep, I go. That's right. There you go. I've been on a couple of shows since. One of them I'm going to let Tom tell you about. And the other one I'm on When They Was Fab. I'm going to be on 2 episodes of that show. One of them is already up, which is about days 18 through 20 on Get Back, the Get Back documentary. And then the second one, Tom and I are actually on that episode, which is about the rooftop and, of course, the final day. So we had a great time talking about that and what we thought of the documentary as a whole. And don't forget, January 27th, starts my Stevie Wonder course. I'm in the process of preparing for it right now. I'm so excited about it. It's a 3-week course online on Zoom through Monmouth University. You can still register for it. It's called The Music of Stevie Wonder. We'll be covering the early days Motown with albums such as this, which Fingertips appears on, and we'll be going all the way through today. And hopefully his new album will be out by the time of this class. I'm not counting on it, but you never know. We'll see. So you can still sign up. You can find the link on our Facebook page, or Joe's like, I'm out of here.
He's registering for your class.
He's
right now. That's
registering
what-
for my class right now. Well, that's my cue to say.
What do you mean? What do you mean? There's no seats left in Kit's class. What do you mean?
Oh, darn. So there, okay. Andy's
Okay.
back. So
Hmm.
anyway, so be sure to sign up. As I said, the links are on our Talk More Talk page. They're on my Facebook page. And hope to see you there.
Great. Thank you, Kits. Ken?
A few things. I know we mentioned Fab4 Radio. There's a new internet radio station called Authentic Radio.
Yeah.
And they're now taking my syndicated Beatles show, Every Little Thing, and it's running Tuesdays at midnight and 5 p.m. Eastern. But they're also taking Things We Said Today, my other
Excellent.
podcast show, and it runs Saturdays at 12 midnight and 4 p.m. And I do believe, aren't they taking Two Legs?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So, and we have to see if Talk More Talk will be on the
We're
channel.
going to get Talk More
Yeah.
Talk on there as
Okay.
well.
So,
Yeah.
plenty of opportunities there to catch our show in different ways, but it's great to have, this other channel carrying all of our shows. What a great feeling that is.
Yes.
Excellent.
Speaking of Every Little Thing, there's a new show that will be premiering next week. And as you know, if you're a listener, there's always thematic sets that I put into my show. And this one will have all charity recordings that the Beatles made, group and solo. So I'll be doing that. And if you want to know where you can hear Every Little Thing, which is just broadcast as a live stream, you can't listen on demand to it. On my website, kenmichaelsradio.com, if you go to the tab that says listen and you go to the drop-down menu, there's a page for Every Little Thing, and it'll list all the radio stations that carry the show and when they play it. And they have links to the website so you can stream them. Everyone that has an asterisk runs the newest show. So if you want to hear that one with the charity records, go to that. And also, Things We Said Today, we have a new show coming next week. It'll be our first show of 2022. I also have my YouTube channel, which is Ken Michaels Radio. Just did a show with my co-host from Things We Said Today, Darren DeVivo. He did a Fab 5 show where he picked his go-to albums, Beatles, and one from each solo Beatle. That was a lot of fun. This should be a busy week for that channel because I might have 3 new videos coming up.
Excellent.
And one of them I'm hoping will be another one with Al Sussman and Tom Frangione and Bruce Spicer. And we're going to do our own show on Get Back. I can't get enough of Get Back. I got to, even though we did our show, Things We Said Today did their show, everybody's doing shows on Get Back. And it doesn't matter if it's not brand new. I love all the insights that people share about it, things that, I might not be thinking about, things they picked up from watching it.
Yeah.
So that'll be later in the week, probably Friday, that'll be up. And of course, there's my website, kenmichaelsradio.com, where you'll find Beatles trivia every single week. You can win one of 10 prizes, books, CDs, DVDs. There'll be a new trivia question or game right after the end of this show tonight. So go visit kenmichaelsradio.com, the Beatles trivia and games page. And also, if any of you want to email me directly, you can write to me at everylittlething@att.net. And I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Ken. Well, for Two Legs, we're, as we all know, that we're a weekly show. You can mainly find us on YouTube, where we do the video aspect of it. So please go to Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, and there you'll find our latest episode, which we have the one and only, the queen of all Beatles media, joining us this week. Yes, that's right. Yes, right. Take your bow, please. And she joined us for the wonderfully experimental album Twin Freaks, which I think is something that every McCartney fan should check out. If you're not into that kind of thing, you can still check it out. You should you owe it to yourself to check it out at least once. It's on streaming, it's on YouTube, and we had a lot of fun discussing that. And
We sure did.
This week. So thank you, Kit, for joining us on that. This week.
Blast.
This week, Andy and I will be revisiting the Space Within Us DVD Blu-ray.
Oh, I just watched that again. I love that.
Yeah. So we'll be revisiting that and talking about it. So we'll have that. When we left here in December, I had mentioned that I was the host of Sam's Macca in Your Attic show, and that show is now out, where I actually am the host this time around, so that where Sam can show his junk, as we call it. And he was able to show his junk and tell his stories, and we had a great time doing that. As Kit mentioned, I also joined her and John and Ed on the When They Was Fab show, talking about the last 2 days of the Get Back special. So that will be out this coming Sunday, right, Kit? I think it's this coming Sunday.
Yes, this coming Sunday.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And like Ken Michaels, the Two Leg Show is also on that Authentic Radio website, so you can go to that website and check out all the listings for the shows. I believe also Robert Rodriguez is on there as well. So a lot, and now Things We Said Today, which will be great, and then hopefully soon Talk More Talk as well. So a lot of really good content on Authentic Radio, so check that out. So that's it for us. It was great chatting with you guys. We'll be back in 2 weeks again. Don't ask us for what, because we haven't figured it out yet.
Oh, cassette. Yes.
That's what I was getting before.
Oh,
Shut the camera off.
gotcha.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Love it. Very cool.
Nice.
And see, if that was on there, you wouldn't even notice it. You'd say, well,
Right.
that's not Paul.
Yeah, where's the
Mhm.
Yep, that's right.
Anyway,
See what I mean?
So that
so like Kid said, thank you very much, everybody that has been checking us out, especially now on our new home, YouTube, which we're going to be for here on out. Thank you, everybody that joined us on Facebook. I know some people had some issues there, but hopefully everything is going well now on Facebook. I'm sorry, on YouTube. So for Ken Michaels, Joe Mayo, the Queen, Kid O'Toole, I'm Tom Hunyadi saying, rest well, Sidney Poitier. Take care.